Is up, y'all? Welcome back to episode 73 of That's No Moon Pod. Today we got the season finale of X-Men 97. Huge things setting us up for the eventual season 2. But this show is just something else that I think people need to really not just appreciate, but I think it just lays down this kind of blueprint for anything that's to come regarding the X-Men or any kind of superhero project that Marvel plans to release because I've never seen a show get so much love and appreciation from the fans in quite some time. It feels like each episode kind of got more and more interesting. Each episode got better. It never really veered off a path to where this one kind of didn't really have anything to do with this episode. It all was pretty congruent from start to finish. Um, just the way that they developed each character, each one kind of had its own unique personality, obviously, just each mutant being different and each having a different power, but they all had their own different moments throughout the whole season to where you really cared about each one. And they kind of did like a whole Game of Thrones approach to it because you never really felt like anyone was safe necessarily. Seeing what happens in Genosha at the beginning of the season and how they just wiped out so many different mutants, including Gambit, and Gambit being one of the more popular characters within X-Men for sure. And just the fact that they're able to kill him off and keep him dead, at least for the time being, I'm assuming. But from what I've heard, he's legit gone. But that kind of gave you this sense of just no one on this team or no one in this show is safe from dying. So whenever anything kind of happened to someone, they kind of left you with that, idea of maybe this character is killed off for good. Um, I was hoping that this episode was going to be at least 40 minutes, a longer episode, and thankfully it was. When I saw that, I knew that we were going to get just a well-rounded season finale, and that's exactly what we got. Um, it just starts off nicely, just with the bang, right from where we left off. Um, Professor X and Magneto, they kind of have like this crazy mind game going on where Magneto's just completely shut off all the power across the world, and Professor X is trying to get him to undo what he's done to help not only the mutants but mankind from Bastion. Um, and Professor X does this crazy ability where he pretty much almost wipes out both of their brains and their memories, but he's able to tap into Magneto's mind and kind of have like this other dimensional within their mind conversation where Charles is trying to get to Magneto and kind of help him see what he's doing and what he needs to do to help the world out. Um, just that old school brotherly love that those two characters have always had for each other, even though they've always been at odds. You could really see the depth of their relationship and how much, um, just how much past that they have together. Um, Cyclops, I thought to me was the best part of this episode for sure. They've really done him justice throughout the whole season, making him really feel like the leader that he is, um, and just how powerful he can be, not just with his abilities, but just with his leadership and his way of just bringing the team together no matter what's going on. You have to respect him and listen to him because he's not just going through this whole thing with the world pretty much about to be completely destroyed, but he's been dealing with a lot of internal things throughout the whole thing with Madeline Pryor and Jean Grey, him having to send his son into the future, Cable, and then Cable coming back, um, and him trying to reconcile the lost time that he's had with his son, and still dealing with all the things that are going on within the show. Um, I thought the way that they made Bastion look just crazy, all with the cybernetics, and he just kind of had like at one point kind of had like a Two Face from the Dark Knight kind of vibe going, but still with like that had like a Terminator vibe to him as well. Um, this whole episode was really well, the whole season, but this episode in particular, I thought had like a really big like anime vibe to it, to where a lot of the visuals and just the way the music kicks in, just really 90s and really just um, over the top, but in a good way. Um, Everything just really accentuated what was going on in the action. Um, that moment where Bastion has all the X-Men tied up with the Sentinels, and he's talking to Cable, and then you're thinking, well, maybe this is where Cable might eat it. Um, and then in comes Jean Grey, the Dark Phoenix. Um, Seeing that brought into the show, seeing the power that Jean Grey has, because I feel like she's always, well, at least this season, she's been dealing with so much with her personal life, with Scott and her kid, and the whole thing with Madeline Pryor, just kind of being in this weird love triangle, and then for her to finally come out and bring this ability out of her and being able to defeat Sinister. That was a funny moment where she pretty much just takes away all of his abilities and then shows who he really looks like, and it's just like this ugly old small creature in a way, and um, just being able to humiliate him for what he did to her son. I thought it was a good payback. Um, but then seeing Bastion rip off Cable's arm, his cybernetic arm, and then that pretty much gives Bastion this whole other upgrade for his armor and just his overall look. Just kind of took it to another level. He's like this evil flying robotic sentinel. Um, I thought that was really cool how they did that. Um, and then just seeing again the whole deal with Charles Xavier and Magneto. They're just kind of going through their whole past together within their own minds, but they only have a certain amount of time to be able to do this. Otherwise, if Charles isn't able to get Magneto to come to his senses, then they're both pretty much going to be lost forever within their minds, and it's just all going to be wiped out. Um, so it kind of puts like this time clock even more on this episode, and for them to wrap up this whole season. Um, so you kind of just get this pace throughout the whole episode of where, again, you don't know who's going to eat it, and you don't know if all these people are going to make it out alive or what exactly is going to happen in the end. Um, we get some really cool moments, cameos, some quick glimpses. They throw in Daredevil, they throw in Black Panther. Um, Iron Man, Captain America, Doctor Strange, um, and they get this really cool, quick moment to where the whole world is kind of rioting at this point because they see what's going on up in the sky with the X-Men, and there's pretty much this giant meteor rock up in space to where the X-Men and Bastion are fighting, and they're all realizing that that rock is going to come down crashing on Earth because the humans decide to pretty much nuke that whole rock that they're fighting on, which sends the whole meteor crashing down on Earth. And while everyone on Earth is kind of just scattered around and trying to run for safety as much as they can, get this cool shot of Peter Parker and MJ from the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s, and they kind of just have like this um, upgraded version of how they looked in the original show, and I thought that was really cool. Um, just to be able to throw them two in there as a couple, and we got a small glimpse of Spider-Man earlier in this season, but just to see, it was Peter Parker and MJ, looking upon at the news, seeing what was going to happen, and really there was nothing that any of them could do. Um, it was all up to the X-Men at this point, and when they're fighting Bastion on the Rock, again, this was kind of something that really had like some anime vibes to it, big time for me. Um, they're all fighting him, all kind of Nightcrawler's doing his thing. Um, Jubilee's putting in work too, trying to, ultimately, Bastion is, I think, one of the better bad guys that we've gotten in a while from a Marvel show or movie at least. Um, I do wish he was in the show a little bit more. That's kind of like my only small gripe I think I would have. Because I think it was either last episode or the episode before where he wasn't. He probably was in the show for probably 10 seconds, if that. Um, because he has such a cool backstory with um his parents. They throw in the whole deal with his mom and him having these abilities, but kind of having that way of Magneto thinking to where the humans are the least superior beings and they're eventually going to turn on him, and like they did to him when he was a child. And I thought he just had such great depth to him, and you really felt for him as a villain. um, but seeing him go head to head with Cyclops was easily my favorite part. I rewind certain scenes a couple of times to where the Bastion's kind of shooting out this energy blast, and then Cyclops throws it right back at him with his powers, and he kind of just yells, and you just see him like fully just go all out with his eye blast, and it just kind of just the way it looked very just Dragon Ball Z, just old school anime style fighting, and just the way they have the music in there. Um, but I thought the whole ending and the fight scene was great. Um, really made you feel like you were watching a finale of a show or you're reading like a crazy epic comic book, and you're kind of just waiting to see how this story arc is going to end. Um, and then once they finally kind of take out Bastion and or at least they're kind of subdued him at least, that's whenever the nukes hit the rock and it's starting to crash down on Earth. And meanwhile, Professor X and Magneto are still within their own minds, but they have this cool moment between each other. Um, or Charles X, he pretty much just has Magneto come to his senses, realize who he is, and what kind of person he is. And he's able to get them out of their own minds just in time for Magneto to do his thing, put that whole magnetic force field around the meteor before it crashes into Earth and shatters it completely. Um, and then once that happens, right, um, you're thinking again with the whole Game of Thrones kind of deal. We don't see any of them make it out. Like there's no, they didn't make it to the jet and fly off back into the school or anything like that because we know Forge is back with where Wolverine is at. Wolverine from the last episode where he stabs Magneto and Magneto completely just rips out the adamantium out of his whole body. Wolverine's still alive. He's just kind of unconscious. Um, and they have that cool moment, quick moment between him and Morph where, um, Logan, he's lying there kind of just hanging on by a thread, and then Morph turns into Jean Grey just to tell him that, she loves him and he needs to be strong and make it out of this for all of us. Because what ends up happening again is we don't see what happens to any of the X-Men, and presumably we think they're all dead. Um, and then we cut to Forge later on to where he's kind of on this on a wall to where all these X-Men are presumed dead or missing or whatever. Um, that goes for everyone: Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Nightcrawler, Rogue, and then in comes Bishop, which we're all wondering where Bishop was from the beginning of the season. And he kind of tells him, look, this is kind of what's going on. Um, there's some futuristic stuff going on to where they may be in the future now. And that's where we cut to. We see Rogue and Nightcrawler. They're kind of like in this ancient Egypt type of world in a certain time. And right away, you're thinking, here comes Apocalypse, right? And sure enough, that's exactly what we get. It's kind of like this younger version of Apocalypse back in ancient Egypt. And I thought that was such a cool reveal. Um, just, it was kind of a rumor going on just from what people were saying online that the ending would eventually lead up to Apocalypse. And sure enough, that's what we get. Um, and then we cut to Jean Grey and Cyclops, and it shows them in a futuristic timeline, and they're kind of in this weird group of people, and then they see their son Cable, but just a little kid version of him, to where he's not super old. He's not a little baby anymore. He's like this little kid, but he has his metal arm now, and they realize it's their son, and we're gonna kind of get like that storyline or Cyclops and Jean Grey. They do go into the future and they're with their son, and they're kind of helping them get through these hard times together as a family in this world that they sent them out on. Um, it's an older comic book run, I know, from I believe the 90s or the 80s, but it's a cool storyline. Um, but just seeing that moment between them, realizing that it's their son, and just the fact that now they're gonna have to find a way to get back to the original timeline while the other X-Men are having to deal with Apocalypse in the past in ancient Egypt. Um, but I just thought it was such a cool cliffhanger that they left the show on. We know we're gonna get a season two, um, and I think just the entirety of this season. Season 2 has such a big obstacle to be able to outdo the first season, but just the way they've already set things up going forward, I got no doubt in my mind that it's going to be a banger of a season 2. Um, and then I actually, whenever the show ended, I hopped online real quick to see just the reactions from people, and I saw that there was actually an end credit scene or a mid credit scene, and it's pretty much Apocalypse, but a modern version of him. Um, so that just all but confirms that he's pretty much going to be the big bad in season 2 for sure. They kind of give him like that cool Thanos end credit scene moment with him, to where you kind of see his face, but you know who it is just by the voice and the overall look of the character. Um, but yeah, amazing season 1 of X Men '97. I can't say enough good things about it. It's just cool seeing all the reactions from people and how much love the show got, and how hopefully Marvel sees this again and they can apply what they've done with this show and apply it more to whatever future projects that they have to come, especially X Men. They can't goof a live action X Men show or movie at this point now, just because we've seen how good those characters play on screen in an animated show. Um, Hopefully, this makes them want to do a Spider-Man animated series again. Um, just more things like that. That'll just kind of bring the whole fan base together again and kind of get the ball rolling for them, making it feel like how it used to feel like. But let me know what y'all thought of the show, the season. Leave the comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe. Still posting my comic books on my IG and Snapchat. New releases, variant covers. I'll be dropping one today and tomorrow, and up until next week's drops. But until next week, y'all stay safe, and I'll catch y'all on the flip. Peace.